listening to Sports Radio Detroit.
Welcome to Grave Discussions. I'm your host, Barnabas.
And I am your other host, Samael. Welcome to episode 62. Not quite superheroes.
Yeah, and we're going to be discussing our top 5 superhero horror movies today in preparation for the release of Brightburn.
And by top 5, we mean just in general, our 5 favorites, not in any specific order.
Yeah, exactly. We really couldn't come up with like a definitive 1 through 5 ranked because it was just too hard, you know.
Yeah.
They're all pretty dope. So we're going to give you guys that list a little bit later in our main segment, but I am pretty pumped for it. Before we get on with the show, of course, as always, we have to give a quick shout out to Sports Radio Detroit, our host network.
Yes, so gracious, so warm and welcoming. You can find them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at SRD Sports Radio Detroit. That is Sports Radio Detroit, not Detroit Sports Radio. I stress this on a weekly basis.
Yes. And on sportsradiodetroit.com, you can also find our friend who joins us in the studio today, Joe Anthony Myrick. Hello.
Yes, also formerly known as Silent Joe.
Exactly. Not so silent anymore. We'll be back after this short sponsored break. Here at Grave Discussions, we know that addiction can be scary, but it doesn't have to be. Let the Detox Helpline help you break your addiction to drugs and alcohol. Call the addiction specialist now at the Detox and Treatment Helpline 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
They're always available for you, and if you have private insurance, they specialize in finding you the right treatment. Give them a call at 1-800-213-9257. That is 800-213-9257.
So, as always, we're going to start off with what's been going on in the world of horror.
There's been a lot of weird shit going on.
There really has been. There's been actually more news out recently than, what you're hearing probably, but we can only cover so much, and this first one is still a big piece of news. Saw being reimagined by Chris Rock.
I don't have a problem with it. I was just kind of confused because I saw that Saw 9 was coming out.
Yeah.
Not that they were going to reimagine Saw.
Well, like we kind of mentioned before, the way it left off, I guess, could be an ending. I mean, you could definitely still extend the storyline with Gordon, but
then there's the other dude, the cop that was also Jigsaw in Jigsaw.
Oh, okay.
So there's 2 Jigsaws.
Oh yeah, I didn't even watch Jigsaw yet. But
really? Oh
yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, that's fine. But I don't know. I mean, it's cool. People think that just because Chris Rock is a comedian that he's not going to be able to, establish the vision that made Saw what it was. But
I don't know about that. I mean Jordan Peele is a comedian.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if he's a fan of it, then cool. Like, it's the same situation like with LeBron, sort of. He's a big fan. If he wants to produce something in order to make like a really cool Jason film or whatever, like that's fine.
Plus, he doesn't have to like give any direction. He could just like fund it because he loves Jason, and then he could hire a screenwriter and hire a director. You know what'd be crazy? You know how John Carpenter wanted to come back for one more movie? Have him do Friday the 13th.
That would be insane.
That would be insane. Just fucking and then have like fucking Victor Miller instead of like that one dude that directed the new Halloween. I forget his name because it's not that important to me. But have Victor Miller direct the Halloween sequel.
Yeah, that would be cool.
That'd be crazy.
I don't know, man. I mean, I think it's totally fine. And what's kind of encouraging too is that Darren Lynn Bousman will be directing the next Saw as well, and he actually directed the first 3 sequels.
Oh shit!
After James Wan, yeah. So that's pretty cool. I mean, I'm excited. So this next bit of news is about another remake coming your way, but it's not about what you think. This is actually going to be a remake of the 1968 Witchfinder General, which starred Vincent Price and is now being remade by John Hillcoat and Nicholas Winding Refn.
I don't know. What do you think about this?
I like Nicholas Winding Refn. He did like Drive and Only God Forgives and whatever. So he's got a very interesting visual style. So it's kind of a weird contrast to like Witchfinder General, which is about like the Salem witch trials and shit like that, about a very specific guy who wants to like eradicate witches and everything. So I'm trying to like imagine it, and it seems extremely interesting. So yeah, I'm kind of hype about it. What do you think?
I don't know. I never saw the original. I guess I gotta get on my Vincent Price train and just go balls out and just see all of his movies, you know?
Yeah.
I still haven't seen the original House on Haunted Hill.
Oh, really? Jeez.
Yeah, I saw the remake was enjoyable, though it did have that 90s like cheese, you know?
Yeah.
But I've never seen the original.
The original is pretty cheesy as well, but pretty much all of Vincent Price's stuff is classic. I have not actually seen Witchfinder General either, but we should watch it at some point. But yeah, this one's being remade. A lot of people like the original film. John Croker, who did Woman in Black 2, is writing the script supposedly. So yeah, I mean, I'm pretty excited about it. You know, this is kind of a more obscure movie, I feel like, but it definitely has a cult fan base. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool.
Seems like it's gonna be badass. I don't know. It's probably gonna be one of the remakes that people bitch less about.
Yeah.
I hope at least.
Well, this movie is from 68, so I feel like it's been long enough. It's pretty obscure, so I think this is a situation where it's totally fine. But let's move on to our last bit of news here.
I was most excited for this bit of news here.
Same. So we've been getting teased a whole lot by Bruce Campbell and others about more Evil Dead stuff and whether or not he's going to play Ash still and everything like that. And now, officially, he is going to come back as Ash in a fully immersive Evil Dead video game.
You know what's crazy is that, like, you know, the way the show ended, you know, like, didn't really like feel like absolved or anything, you know. It felt like something wasn't finished. And apparently Dead by Daylight, Ash going into the Dead by Daylight world is canon.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
like
wow.
that's what happens after the show. He gets sucked into like the Dead by Daylight verse, and he's just like, he just has to repair generators and
Okay.
face against Michael Myers the Hag. And we all wondered, like, you know, what's next for Ash.
Mhm.
And now we know there's an Evil Dead video game coming out.
Yeah, so I wonder what the storyline is going to be. I kind of don't want it to be, you know, like the original movie where everything just kind of happens like that. I kind of hope it's its own thing and it either takes place, maybe not, you know, counting Dead by Daylight. I feel like that would be kind of weird, but maybe following the TV show or like in between, I don't know, Army of Darkness and the TV show or something like that. You know, just like its own kind of storyline. I think that would be kind of cool.
I think so.
Yeah, but I feel like, how do you think the gameplay should be like though? Because I feel like it would either be like a hack and slash or like a survival horror type thing.
I was gonna say it's like hopefully it's something like The Evil Within or Outlast,
Yeah.
except, you know, like, yeah, with the ability to fight back with the boomstick and
Mhm.
like machetes and axes and swords. But I still wanted like a story, like a consistent story. But I also do want multiplayer mode. So like the story can be something completely different from multiplayer mode. Maybe multiplayer mode, it's the 1980s and you're Ash and all his friends and you're stuck in the cabin and one of you has to read the Necronomicon and then each of you get possessed and you gotta like and it's a choice. You can either kill your friends or you can like try to like exorcise the demon, but like to do that you have to find hints around the cabin on how to translate the Necronomicon.
Okay, so it kind of
Like
almost has a process like Friday the 13th, the game,
Yeah.
sort of. Okay, interesting. I was kind of thinking of like, you know, an Evil Dead gang versus Deadites, like a team
Oh.
kind of thing. Might be interesting. I don't know. I think there's a lot of things that they could do with it. The single player, I feel like, should probably be linear. Yeah,
I think so, yeah.
you know, and maybe have that Evil Within type gameplay, but with maybe like situational, interactable sort of things. Because, you know, Ash is always very creative with his kills, especially in the show. We see him like kill people with all types of shit. So there could be like prompts where you could like drag a deadite there and do something special.
That would
like
be cool,
a
yeah.
kill. So yeah, guys, be on the lookout for more information about the Evil Dead video game. It seems pretty cool. So we have a couple trailers to run through very quickly, and then we're going to get into our first segment. So the first trailer is coming at Fantaspoa Film Festival in, I believe, Brazil, May 16th through June 2nd, and then I'm sure we'll see a release later on. But this one looks cool. It's called True Fiction, and
It looks crazy.
it's got a very Misery type vibe, to me at least.
Yeah, it did. Like, girl goes into, this guy's like cabin, whatever, where he's writing, and she's like, "Oh, I didn't bring any of my writing materials because they told me not to." And he hits her with that cliche, "Oh, you always do as you're told."
Mhm.
And then like he subjects her to like watching him like torture people and stuff like that.
I think he's torturing her.
because there was already a girl being tortured in like a locked room, and this
Yeah.
chick saw it and she's like, "What the fuck?" And then she started like running away. So
Yeah.
seems good. Just because it's not like any other idea that
Mm.
Hollywood horror is just spewing out at us.
I just wonder if it's going to be more like torture porn or like psychological horror, because I feel like it looks like
Seems
it could
like a
be kind of
thriller.
either. Yeah. So be on the lookout for that one. Once there's a confirmed release date, widespread, then we'll let you guys know. The next trailer is about a movie called Freaks, releasing August 23rd in theaters.
And I can't stress this enough. I don't know what's going on in that movie because it seems like the dad's schizo and he's like keeping his like daughter indoors because like he's crazy. But I think it's going to turn into those things where like once she decides, "I have had enough," and she leaves the house, that something crazy is going to happen.
No, I think so. I think something supernatural is going on, and I think that it's something to do with the kids. Like the kids in this movie are, I don't know, mutants or maybe they're monsters or something like that. Because basically, Emil Hirsch plays the dad of this young girl who he keeps locked inside his house. There's all kinds of hints as to like the kids are bad in some kind of way, like
yeah.
that they shouldn't be roaming around or something like that, or that they're being hunted almost in a way. And so this dad is basically trying to protect his daughter. It doesn't really show why the kid is like being locked in there. It's very ambiguous.
Yeah, it made me seem like the dad was schizo or something.
Yeah, but I do think that there's something weird going on with the girl that they just didn't show us.
Or unless it's just one of those movies like, this movie's about nothing. Nothing happens. Take that.
It's possible.
Like, what's that one movie with Joel Edgerton?
It comes at night or something
Yep,
like that.
that's
yeah.
the one. Yep.
Yeah, possibly. We'll see. The last trailer that we have for you guys is about a movie called Krasu Inhuman Kiss. So this is a Thai movie. And there's no U.S. release date yet, but I believe it's coming out soon in Asia. But this movie is basically about a folktale about a demon woman whose head comes off and goes and like kills people. So it's pretty cool, but it looks like it almost has like a romance vibe to it, like heavy. So I don't know. It seems fascinating. What do you think?
I thought with like the spawn of La Llorona, like there was going to be like a slew of like different cultures exploring their female demons. So
Mhm.
like I'm not really surprised by this, but as far as the movie goes, it looks okay, but there's like kind of like one cheesy part where a guy gets dragged by his neck by like these like tentacle things, like
Yeah.
it's like, all right, man, we've seen that in every fucking movie. Can we like stop with these supernatural horrors, please? I still haven't watched Terrified, and I heard they're
yeah.
remaking that into an English version.
I actually thought Terrified was pretty good. So it doesn't surprise me, but yeah, some of these are just very like prototypical. It's just kind of the same formula, even across countries.
Yeah,
So
it's
I
like
get you.
like I said, hey, here's an evil woman ghost thing from our culture.
Yeah.
Why? What do you mean? This is an original idea, and we're just explaining. It's like, no, you saw La Llorona, so you're like, yo, let me capitalize on that. Like it's one of those crazes that's going on again. We're gonna get so many independent. This is the ghost of my culture
Yeah.
movies. Like look what happened. Didn't we just talk about Baba Yaga last week?
hmm
There you go.
Yeah. I mean, stuff like that has been around for a while, but
Now it's
I
just
think
surfacing more because of La Llorona.
yeah, urban legends and folktales are definitely becoming bigger, I feel like, or at least more prominent. You get stuff like Candyman and urban legends and stuff, movies like that every now and then, but it's kind of a lot right now, I agree. But That's it for the trailers, guys. Be on the lookout for more information about those and let us know what you think about them if you've seen them. Right now, we're going to discuss a cult classic horror film in The Cult Corner. And in this week's Cult Corner, Samael, we have a true frightening body horror film, Reanimator.
And we have a true 1980s film in Reanimator.
Yeah.
Directed by Stuart Gordon, and I didn't know that because I'm a dumbass. You know, for like the past like 10 years, I thought this was a Cronenberg movie.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why, because like the body horror themes are pretty exaggerated in both directors' works, but yeah, no, Stuart Gordon. This was his first like official feature film, which is crazy. But yeah, coming out in 1985, right in the smack of the decade, and I feel like this is when we started seeing a lot more of what would be kind of the classics.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of these more like sci-fi horror films too. Like we still saw a lot of slashers, but we started seeing stuff like this, From Beyond.
This was a real breath of fresh air, I think, for the 80s because like with Halloween inspiring Friday the 13th, and then with the first Friday the 13th just inspiring the slew of like campground / mental institution slashers. It was really nice to see something like Reanimator just show up in the 1980s. Like, hey, you guys wanted something new? Well, here you go. Here's kind of zombies.
Yeah, this movie actually kind of reminded me of Return of the Living Dead.
Yeah?
You know, yeah, now every time I like see
vibe.
it, I think it's the vibe. I think it's, you know, the way that the corpses are like moving around and stuff like that.
Brain.
I don't know. Yeah, it just kind of struck me. But no, I mean, when this movie came out, it really was its own thing. You know, you got young Jeffrey Combs playing, who's really kind of an anti-hero almost in this film.
It's because of how stuck up he is, honestly.
Yeah, he's very arrogant.
He's like Vegeta from Dragon Ball Z, if I can explain it any better.
I mean, but, you know, he's right to be, because he basically discovered the means of life after death and resurrection.
You just inject someone with this green goo, and then they'll return as cannibal corpse killers.
That's basically what this movie is.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's still mindful of other people, sort of, but he feels above everybody else. He's very arrogant, and he's pretty hilarious too. Like, he's a smart ass, you know.
In every instance where he can be, he takes full advantage of him being a smart ass. Like him calling was it Dr. Carl Hill? Was that the doctor who he called? Like, he's like, your stuff is antiquated, old man.
Yeah,
he's like, your shit sucks, man. Get with the times.
Yeah, Dr. Hill, the antagonist, basically. Yep, that was him. So, yeah, he just didn't really give a fuck, you know, because he knew that he was smarter, basically. So, he wasn't quite the protagonist, but he still was, I would say, one of the protagonists at the end of the film.
Oh, yeah.
At least. Because, you know, he still ended up saving Dan, his best friend, who ended up being pretty much his only friend.
Yeah.
You know. But he still didn't get away scot-free. He actually seemed to die at the end of this film.
Until we got Bride of Reanimator.
Right.
Which confirmed that he did not die.
Mm-hmm. But, I mean, he still came off in a likable way. So it was a very interesting character dynamic.
Because you could tell he didn't have, like, bad intentions. He was just, like, this super fucking science nerd who just wanted to, like, make, like, this really important discovery.
Yeah, exactly. And he really just wanted to be rich and famous, I feel like. But, you know, he discovered this thing and he knew what he had and he wanted to, like, test it. And basically, he's one of those scientist types who, for the greater good, or so he feels like, or in order to make this discovery, he'll do basically whatever it takes.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a very cool character, so it's easy to like the character and be attached to the character. But I feel like this was one of the first 80s movies that kind of presented this type of character dynamic. So that's very interesting. The body horror elements were really cool too. Having Dr. Hill be like a talking head, basically. It was, I feel like, one of the cooler villains of the 80s.
I felt like the acting, though, was superb. It was more like 70s acting, like the more serious acting, as opposed to like the 80s cheeseball acting, like let's say with Night of the Demons, for example. It
Mhm.
wasn't that type of movie. It was actually a very, I don't know, I felt like this movie was kind of stylish, like the way it like presented like the kills and like the zombies. Like I
Mhm.
think that there was a lot of shots of like the undead in this. So
Yeah, there was
I-
pretty.
not undead, the reanimated. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there was pretty heavy emphasis on all the practical effects, and for good reason, because the practical effects in this movie are, I would say, probably one of the best of what we consider classic horror.
I think so. Yeah.
Like this, The Thing.
Watch Toxic Avenger. That shit had like some
Mhm.
decent fucking effects. Trauma always has some crazy fucking effects.
Oh yeah, even though that was like a much lower budget movie. But
Yeah, they still did great.
yeah.
I don't know, man. Practical is the way to go, and Reanimator did not disappoint me.
No, not at all. And what was your favorite like practical effect in that movie?
I would say the very first human they reanimated. Like once he fucking got up and brah, you get that like shot of like that muscular zombie giant. Like that had to have been my favorite part.
When they snuck into the
Yep, and
morgue or whatever.
yeah, and he ended up attacking the doctor. Well, the dean actually. I'm sorry.
Yeah, which actually led to another pretty cool character moment, with him as like the reanimated Dean who's helpless, basically.
Because he got lobotomized.
Yeah. So, and then Herbert West sees him, and it's very interesting. I didn't think that they were going to go a lot of the routes that they went with the story. So I feel like the story is very good.
I didn't think Dr. Hill was gonna like end up being the main antagonist of this movie. I thought like
Yeah.
the problem was gonna be like they were gonna reanimate a bunch of people, and now we got zombies on the loose. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
I didn't expect it to be this small scale. Like it was really confined to like the apartment and the hospital.
Yeah, but I like that,
I like that
because
too. I don't like giant scale movies because then they become like apocalyptic and shit like that. This was more of like low key, weird science shit going on, and we got to keep it low key.
yeah, it's cool to have like a body count sort of thing, which this movie did have. But for me personally, even with like a fun horror film, I still like to feel invested in the characters.
I do too, yeah.
And this movie, I feel like, really allowed you to do that. Not only because of the performances. I mean, you got Jeffrey Combs, Barbara Crampton, who are now horror icons, but they're very good actors too. And Bruce Abbott as Dan does a fantastic job. Pretty much everybody in this movie, like you said, gives a great performance. And the characters are written in an interesting way too, because Dan even is a cool character. He's very much like the kind of pure protagonist. He's like a good guy.
Yeah, he was, yeah.
He's nice to his girlfriend.
He's the
and-
poster boy for like final guys.
Exactly. So, and he does end up becoming the final guy, which is good, but
Technically, Herbert was too,
technically,
because
yeah,
we didn't know until the sequel, but he's alive.
yeah, it leaves on a cliffhanger, but technically
He's the
yes.
hero more than the, like,
I would say he's like the main character, but
yeah.
it all revolves around him. Even what happened in this movie was because of him.
Yeah.
Because if Dan and Megan never met this guy, none of this shit would have happened.
Yeah, no, there would have been. Honestly, when you think about it, everything would have went fine, kind of. Because then, like, the fucking Dean wouldn't have fucking got pissed at Dan for, like, participating in these, like, reanimation experiments with Herbert and all that stuff. And, yeah, honestly, if Herbert never showed up, when you think about it in hindsight, it was never a good idea for him to do this reanimation thing
No.
because, like, you reanimate them, but they're just, like, purely instinct based and they're just killing and eating. And
Yeah.
sure, it's a scientific discovery, but it's not a good one. I discovered how to bring back lupus. Like, why? Why would you want that? Like,
Yeah. I mean, the message is almost actually kind of similar to like Pet Sematary.
yeah.
I think, just leave the dead alone,
Yeah.
basically. So the way that everything developed in this film was, I thought it was very interesting. And so all the elements
score.
there for me, the score is awesome. We haven't talked about that yet, but the score was amazing.
The score was great. Like, I know, like, I've seen this movie, like, probably a long time ago and don't remember it because as soon as we got to the title menu and that fucking score went off and, like, I was like, wait the fuck a minute. I've heard this a bunch of times before. Why is this so familiar? It was just etched into my psyche, into my subconscious all these years, and I never knew where I heard that theme from, but it was from Reanimator.
Yeah, it's a fantastic theme. I mean, pretty much all the music in this movie is great.
It reminds me of some like Harry Manfredini music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like some Friday the 13th vibes with the score for me.
I'm pretty sure I said that actually kind of sounds like the music in Beetlejuice
Yeah.
almost, you know. So I definitely think it had that very upbeat kind of vibe, but it fit the movie perfectly. I feel like,
I think so.
you know, it's easy to say that knowing that it is in the movie, but I don't know. I feel like looking at both elements separately, I think they just fit perfectly fine. So yeah, it's everything pretty much about this movie is great. I don't really know what more to say about it. Do you have anything else you want to say about it?
No, I thought the acting was well done. The cinematography didn't feel like 80s cinematography. It didn't have that amateurish feel. You know what I mean? It seemed like, I want to almost say that it was kind of modern.
Mm.
It wasn't like, I don't know, it just didn't seem like 80s cinematography, but like they had the era down, like obviously because they lived in that era, but
Yeah.
it feels like an 80s movie. But like I said, the score was much better than most 80s movies. Cinematography was real different. The acting was a lot better. This movie like took itself a lot more seriously than most of like the other 80s movies did.
Mm.
And it succeeded there. You know, it wasn't like, let's say, it did have like the Night of the Living Dead vibes, but not like the goofy vibes. Like it,
Yeah.
just the same general feel. And I thought Herbert West was badass. I can't wait to check out Bride of Reanimator and then Beyond Reanimator, because like I never visited these or most of like other body horror movies. I wasn't into that when I was a kid. So
Mm. Yeah, I feel you. I mean, I don't know. I recently watched Bride of Reanimator. I thought it was awesome.
was it?
Yeah, the makeup practical effects in that movie is also really quite good. There's a few kind of cheesy things, but
I don't remember them, so they weren't that detrimental.
yeah. But you know, it's a fun sequel. I feel like, you know, and I think it's a good sequel. So yeah. Let us know what you guys think about Reanimator, but we're going to move on to our main segment. But first, a few sponsored messages.
Because I feel like a salad tossing might feel good.
What? Out of Bounds Detroit podcast. Tuesday morning and Friday mornings here on SportsRadioDetroit.com.
Hey Samuel.
Hey Barnabas, what's up?
Oh, not much. Have you ever written a book?
No, but I've written a musical.
Oh, well, you can become a published author with Dorrance Publishing, the nation's oldest publishing services company.
Aha, I hear countless authors have trusted Dorrance for nearly 100 years to bring their books to the market.
Their professional team will edit your text, design your book pages, and create an appealing, eye-catching custom cover. Plus, their authors benefit from a custom book promotion marketing campaign that makes your book available where people buy books.
So, make this free call right now to claim your free author's guide to publishing. Do not wait another day. Take one step closer to realizing your dream of becoming a published author.
And seeing your name in print.
Aha! You've already written a book. Next thing to do is make this free call now to Dorrance Publishing and get your free guide to publishing. Call right now.
The number is 1-800-213-9259. Again, 1-800-213-9259. Welcome back, Fiends. So in this week's main segment, as promised, we're going to discuss our top 5 favorite superhero horror films. And again, we kind of just compiled our own individual top 5s and we put them into this list, but we couldn't, really come up with like a definitive ranked list. So we're just going to kind of talk about our top 5 in general, and I think we'll just run through them alphabetically. So the first, and yes, there are more than like a few, not that many, but there's a good bit. Maybe like a dozen or so. But
We'll hit them with those honorable mentions.
Yes. So the first one in our top 5 is Blade 2.
So, I saw Blade as a kid. I never really bothered to watch Blade 2. And then I watched the CinemaSins video for it, and it showed like these like vampire mutant things. So I was like, all right, I'm sold. And then I watched it, and I kind of didn't see the same problems that they did at CinemaSins. I was trying to more enjoy the action. Other than the one bad guy at a time attacking, that was pretty much my only problem with the movie.
Stunt choreography has come a long way. Let me just tell you that, because if you see like John Wick, it's come a long way from the 1v1, but yeah, I mean, at the same time, it is like a superhero, adaptation kind of. So yeah, that wasn't the best, but overall, I think the movie is awesome. It's very action packed. I think the horror elements themselves are actually quite good, at least personally. Like the Reaper vampires are very cool. The first time I saw it, I was actually taken back by like how cool they were with like their jaws opening up, just
Yeah, they're just these fucking mutants, man. Goddamn Reaper strain. I thought Blade was pretty badass in this movie too, because like he had to constantly go through some bullshit in this movie, like the betrayal, and then on top of being betrayed by the people he helped, now he had to fight this fucking super vampire, and then I just felt like he was just being taken through hell in this movie.
No, the writing was actually great, because his back was against the wall this entire movie.
Yeah, because like he didn't know like what to really do. Like even when Novak tried like manipulating him, he was like, "Is the enemy of my enemy my friend or my enemy?" And then he tried to like have that whole big talk with him on that wooden beam when they were fighting.
Yeah, that was a really cool scene, actually. Probably one of my favorites. But he had to go up against Jared Nomak, and he had to go up against Reinhardt and the whole crew. I forgot exactly what their like group name was, but Ron Perlman as Reinhardt. Another awesome addition to this movie, and a great secondary antagonist, which we kind of felt like was going to be the case because they just hated each other right off the bat. But yeah, Blade had to babysit them the whole movie. He had to go through this whole thing with like the elder vampire, and the Nomak turned out to be his like son or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
It was a cool story though, and I always forget that this movie was directed by Guillermo del Toro, but it really shows.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think it really shows because the action parts with like the CGI are kind of not very representative of del Toro, but it was necessary for like the superhero aspect of this movie, I feel like, to come out. And even though Blade is like not your conventional hero, and that's what we're gonna see in this top 5 list, is I feel like that theme is going to be very consistent, that all these protagonists, all these heroes, quote unquote, don't really come across as heroes. Because even Blade, even though he's slaying vampires, he's still fucking like decapitating vampires and shooting them and stuff like that.
Not to mention that dude at the end that he kind of really didn't have to kill.
Yeah.
The one that he like grabbed at the beginning of the movie and like went into their lair and whatnot. And I don't know. That was the fat dude with that long hair.
Yeah. Yeah, he really didn't have to, but I mean, fuck it. He just hates vampires, so why not? And he only worked with the others in order to kill the super vampire.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I actually thought that the writing was great. The introduction of the whole like vampire hunter gang was cool. It was a cool like story element. I thought Jared Nomak was an awesome villain too.
I think so too.
So, but yeah, I mean, how do you actually feel about like the superhero elements of this?
I thought it was pretty good. Blade's obviously like the superhero in this, but like what makes him a superhero is not that he's slaying evil, because he's a fucking vampire too. I think it's all the struggles that he has to go through, and mistrusting people like we saw with what's his name, Scud. Yeah, and right off the bat he has to like revive his old like father figure from like the dead, and like and then trusting this whole like vampire hunter vampires squad, and let me side with the enemy. They're definitely not going to just betray me. But him being the hero that he is, he goes and helps them anyway, even though he knew there was going to be a betrayal. And then he said he knew Scud was going to betray him, so he blew up Scud, spoiler alert.
Yeah. No, I mean, he really had to overcome a lot in this movie. And I think the whole relationship between Blade and Whistler was very important because it allowed us to see that human side of Blade, which really kind of portrayed him more as a hero versus just like a monster.
Yeah.
So that was cool. Yeah. That's in our top 5. I feel like just because all the elements are there to make a successful story. The makeup, practical effects are awesome. Even the CGI is good.
Yeah, it's pretty decent for 2002.
Yeah.
Some of it was kind of questionable.
Yeah, like every time Blade's like jumping around is like kind of obvious.
Looks like a video game. Like,
yeah, but I mean, that's I guess the best they could do with like that in 2002. It's not that surprising. It still kind of takes me out of it sometimes, but with like the vampire CGI, like all that stuff was cool. So yeah, it was dope. I mean, I really enjoyed it. So Next up on our list is The Crow.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Obviously, an infamous movie now because of the tragic death of Brandon Lee, but the movie itself was great. And this is probably, I would say, the one movie on this list that has the least kind of superhero vibes.
It was like a fantasy / dark crime movie, you know?
Yeah. I mean, even the character of Eric Draven himself, I could see the superhero angle, kind of, but he's really more of like a vigilante, like an anti-hero, like Venom or Moon Knight or something like that, you know, because his quest is for revenge.
Yeah, it's like for like personal retribution. It wasn't like Batman, some misplaced sense of self-righteousness just because his parents got killed or something, you know?
But he's still taking down these like mafia-like gangsters.
Yeah.
So I can kind of see it, but it's definitely horror as well because of the themes of resurrection and all that
the
stuff.
supernatural and just death in general in this movie.
Yeah, it's a very dark film. It's set in a Detroit that honestly is pretty exaggerated. Like, it's not that shit.
Yeah.
At least not even back in the day. Like, and we live here. So
It makes it seem like Gotham, you know, like
Yeah.
like they live in Gotham. It's just all constantly dark and raining and
It's very grimy.
yeah,
You know, there's trash everywhere and shit.
yeah.
Like, the buildings suck. I mean, a lot of the buildings in Detroit kind of suck, but you know, this movie definitely takes it to an extreme. But it's necessary for the story, and I mean, it's just an iconic film. I mean, Brandon Lee's performance is great. The action is cool, but really, I feel like this movie benefits most from its script. I think probably, and the characters are pretty cool too. Like those lowlifes that, you know, end up like killing his wife or whatever.
Yeah.
Like they were pretty interesting. Yeah, I just really like this movie.
I liked it because like at no point was I like, hey, look, a cool villain, you know? It wasn't like Dark Knight. There was no like really Joker character. It was more
Yeah.
like you just want him to get retribution because fuck it, any normal person would. Yeah, how about justice? Fuck justice. These
Yeah.
fuckers need to learn. Sometimes justice isn't enough, all right? Sometimes people just need to be thrown off a building,
hmm Yeah, and
make a message out of them.
this movie really like knocks that home for sure.
Yeah.
You know, it's not afraid to just like go to those extreme bounds and really just show, you know, how far one person can go for love, essentially. But he's also back from the dead, so he doesn't really care.
Yeah, he's more like, yo, I got cheated out of fucking life. I got cheated out of my fucking wedding that I was about to have. So fuck these guys.
Yeah, everything is pretty much quality, and this was right on the cusp of like Scream coming out and horror really becoming, you know, really prominent once again. So, yeah, it's a great film, iconic. I don't know where I would put it in like my personal. I think I put it like number 2 or 3 or something like that. I put Blade 2 as my number 1, just for the record.
Mhm.
So, the next movie we have is 2004's Hellboy, another Ron Perlman film.
I was about to say.
Another Del Toro film. And yeah, I mean, this one is also phenomenal, I feel like.
I thought so too. When it came out, I fucking loved this movie. Especially Ron Perlman, man. Like, he's like one of the best to ever be in like these like dark fantasy like type. I don't want to say horror. These like dark fantasy type movies, you know what I mean? And like him as Hellboy was always badass. Even the new Hellboy, like, is that Ron Perlman?
No, it's
See,
David Harbour from Stranger Things.
See, even though it's not Ron Perlman, like, just because Rob Perlman did Hellboy, I
Mhm.
think Hellboy is forever gonna like have that appeal and have
Yeah.
that coolness to it because he was just this like kick-ass fucking demon. Like that.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. Like you want a demon as a good guy, just so you can finally say like, hey, that's pretty cool without seeming like a satanic fuck. But
Yeah.
and there's Hellboy for you.
Ron Perlman is just great at representing that sort of like rough but still vulnerable persona. And especially as Hellboy, that's really important because obviously as like a half demon, he comes off as terrifying to most people, but he still has a lot of soft spots. He likes cats. He likes, what is it, fucking Babe Ruth candy bars
I
or
think
whatever.
so, yeah, the Baby Ruths.
Yeah, so, you know, and it's really just because, like, he grew up very quickly. So he still kind of acts like a kid sometimes. The writing in this movie is great. Del Toro's direction, obviously, is phenomenal. the comic books themselves sort of have a fantasy element to them, especially in the art style. It's very kind of like abstract almost. It's a very unique art style. And, I think the movie actually does a pretty good job of like translating that. And obviously, since it's Del Toro, the fantasy elements are really cool too. Ape Sapien is awesome. Anything Doug Jones does really is very cool. Yeah, and this movie is great. And I feel like this movie actually paints the picture of a hero much better because Ron Perlman as Hellboy actually cares about people.
Yeah.
He's
not like revenge driven or anything like that, really.
He still has the kind of boyhood personality, and he doesn't really understand, what he needs to do or why he's doing what he's doing necessarily, but he just knows that he has to keep the people he cares about safe and other people safe because he was raised that way.
Yeah.
So that human side of him is very much represented. And I mean, we see that with all these superhero horror movies, even though there's like a side that we might perceive as bad to like a hero, there's a human side usually too, like a good side.
Oh yeah. I mean, you kind of see like his like want to fucking be good when, he kisses those horns goodbye.
Yeah. And, because the whole thing with Hellboy is about like destiny, he's destined to be like the harbinger of doom.
Yeah.
So his whole like struggle through this movie is basically throwing that away, just completely rejecting that and doing his own thing, having free will, not just like what other people tell him that he's supposed to do.
Exactly. And that's what makes a hero. He didn't, like you don't have to follow your destiny, quote unquote, subjective ass destiny and be this evil harbinger of doom, as you say. Like,
yeah,
you could just do what the fuck you want. And that's why Hellboy's a hero, because given the fact that he is half demon and he does have like, probably has those like demonic tendencies to just be naturally evil, he just like doesn't really have those,
Yeah, he doesn't act on it really. He just kind of wants to be left alone because most people think that he's a freak.
Yeah.
Eventually he does kind of come out, so to speak, which is cool, and people sort of accept him more, but he and the BPRD are still kind of like this underground thing, so it's very interesting. I love all the creatures and stuff in this movie.
They even had
the Samael.
Yeah, his dog Samael.
Yeah, there's like multiple. Well, it's one entity, but you can like split off.
Yeah. That's two M's though. Let me make that distinction.
Oh yeah,
you could spell it with two M's sometimes, but
no, yours is one M.
One M. So I put two sometimes just because. Fuck you, because I want to.
Yeah, why not? Free will.
Exactly.
There we go. Yeah, I mean, this movie is awesome. Actually, probably one of my favorites. Top 2 or 3 for sure. Just because Hellboy is a great character. The art direction in this movie and just the general direction is fantastic.
I think aesthetically this movie was a lot more pleasant. No offense to like Blade and fucking The Crow. The Crow was like really dark and depressing and it was like moody and atmospheric, but like Hellboy, just the aesthetics are just much better. Like, I don't know, it's just more, I don't want to say artsy, but it's more colorful, and like that makes the movie like super enjoyable for me. Like,
I was just gonna say, I think the colors popped in this movie more.
Yes, that's the thing for me.
Yeah.
And I haven't watched this movie since like, I want to say since like my senior year of high school, but I still remembered it enough to like be like, yeah, I enjoyed it and I will watch it again.
Yeah. So that's a great one. Now, the last two are not Del Toro movies, but this next one also kind of has a demon in it. And our fourth pick is Spawn.
Starring Michael J. White as Spawn.
Yeah.
You know what I thought was weird? Spawn made a deal with that demon to kill the guy who the demon got to kill him.
Yeah.
That was kind of fucking stupid.
Let me just say this right off the bat, even though this movie is in our top 5 list,
it's aesthetically because Michael J. White is a badass as Spawn and the way he looks, not because it's a good movie.
It's a bad movie.
It's a very bad movie. Dude,
it's a fun movie, but it's very bad.
And I know it was 1997, but holy crap. I rewatched a lot of the scenes with... Dude, can we stop with like CGI or whatever the kind of digital effects they used for this movie? They were terrible.
The only good CGI, in my opinion, was like his cape or whatever when he would like fly down. That was dope. But all the other CGI, oh boy.
Yeah, it was like modern day. I could make this movie Just give me like a fucking decent laptop.
It's like if I drew everything in GIMP
yes.
and just tried to like animate it as a GIF and just made the whole movie that way.
Yeah.
Dude, that one scene when Spawn goes to hell and confronts Malboja, like
Just the fire and the way Malboja looks. It's just so like computer-ish.
no, the worst part is when they're standing like on those flaming platforms.
Oh my god, bro.
And it's so obvious. It's so clear that it's like really shit. See, like they ran out of budget.
I think people overrate the shit out of this movie just because like they watched it when they were little, so they're like, oh, it's badass. Because I rewatched it recently and I was like, yeah, I can't figure out what I don't like about this movie. Let me check. So after I watched the movie last night, I went on to youtube.com and typed in, see if they have it, a Spawn Cinema Sins.
Yeah.
You know, this movie had like over like, I think like, this movie had thousands of sins.
Oh, yeah,
The guy's
I
like, yo, let
believe
me
it.
just give them 2,000 sins right here just because.
I would have given them like 5,000 just for that scene that we were.
I think it had
talking
more
about.
than that.
Man. All right. Well, either way, it's still in our top 5.
Because sometimes cheese is necessary.
I mean, like you said, Michael J. White does play a badass Spawn. I think that his character in this movie is actually pretty cool. Definitely the best character. Martin Sheen does a great job, but his character kind of sucks. It's just the very typical, like, I'm going to rule the world because I'm rich, you know?
Yeah, it has no, I hate to say this because it's Spawn, but goddamn, talk about a substanceless movie and a nonsensical script, by the way.
Yeah, the script's really
You
bad.
can't really tell what direction they were even trying to go with this movie. It seemed like, yo, let's just capitalize on the fucking comic books, bro. It's Spawn. People will pay to see this.
Yeah, the art direction was not that great. I mean, I
It was not an
appreciated
aesthetically good movie.
I appreciated the urban setting, you know, the very grimy, dirty look to everything. It made complete sense because he was basically outcast, you know, and
You
just
know-
forced to like do all this crazy demonic murdering.
You know why I think it looks like shit to us? Because we were used to watching Spawn on like a 15-inch like box TV on
Yeah.
VHS when the quality wasn't like Blu-ray quality.
Mhm.
When it's Blu-ray quality, you could kind of see the CGI and like the shitty
Yeah.
effects too much. When you're watching it on a VHS, you're like, oh, that looks pretty
Because
cool.
I'm pretty sure back then, like when you would see, also haven't mentioned it yet, but John Leguizamo as the clown, the Violator,
Oh,
is great.
No,
He's
it was
he's
bad enough
great.
when he was fucking Luigi, right? He played Luigi in the fucking
Did he?
Super Mario
I don't know.
movie. Yeah, he did.
Oh my god, his character. Listen, his
hate
performance
him.
was great.
No, he was.
It was.
He probably has PTSD about that performance.
I'm sure he does, but like his performance was still one of the saving graces of this movie, in my
Such a
opinion.
fucking. It was annoying though.
It was,
honestly.
but it was supposed to be.
Yeah,
you
I know.
But he was great. But like the scene where he transforms into like this full demon thing
I hated that.
on the tube, as it were, you know, that was cool. But when I was watching it on like my 55-inch 4K TV,
Yeah.
it was pretty bad. But,
Exactly. That's
but I
what I'm
s-
saying.
but I still had fun with this movie, and I think that that's like the sole reason. It and like Spawn basically just murdering people.
They picked the right guy for it too, Michael J. White.
Yeah.
Honestly, they need to like have a remake, but bring him back because he still looks young as fuck. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
He's in shape.
Plus, he'd just be under all that makeup. I mean, props to the dude, because you know how many fucking hours he probably had to spend
It looked like
under that Freddy Krueger mask.
it looked like it was a pain in the ass to just have that on his face at all, and those contact lenses too.
Yeah, he was in that makeup for probably a longest time. I want to see exactly like how long he was in that makeup.
I do
because,
too.
Man, that guy can withstand pretty much anything after that.
I mean, it's Michael J. White, you
Yeah.
know.
So let's move on to our last movie here, The Toxic Avenger.
This one is probably top 2 for me.
Yeah.
After watching it last night, honestly, there was 2 scenes where I actually fucking like jumped, like, cause like
Mm.
when he was going after all like the bad people, there was one part where he like jumped out from underneath this like chick's legs, and he's like, "Rah!"
It
and
got
I
you.
fucking jumped.
Well, hey, that's great, you know, because this movie is very surprising. It just goes all over the place.
He doesn't really only like kill for revenge; he kills bad people, like
Yeah.
all bad people.
He still retains his like conscience, basically.
Yeah,
You know, he's just like a freak.
yeah.
That's it. But like a super strong freak. Yeah, this movie's great. I've actually only ever seen the first Toxic Avenger. I've never seen any of the others. But I know that Toxie is like a huge cult thing.
Yeah, it's because of Trauma, man.
Yeah.
Even their Poultrygeist is, I ordered that, by the way. It's coming in tomorrow.
Yeah, Troma has like a very interesting but ecstatic fan base, and they just clamor for anything Troma, which is sweet. But the Troma style is so evident, especially in the Toxic Avenger.
It was like, it's crazy, like, because there are these like really like over the top, stressed out like teenagers that go to the gym, and they're just like, this movie is like the embodiment of like the 80s, I think. Like, it feels super 80s, and like there's this one scene where they hit a kid on a bike, and then they run his head over and kill him, and they're like, ah, ha 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 ha, it's like no one's like that, but
it's very exaggerated for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, but they had to do that, I feel like, to really just drive the point home that these people are pieces of shit.
I think so, yeah, and it worked because I wanted them dead.
And I mean, Toxie as a superhero, I mean, what do you think about that? Because obviously the movie itself is very weird, but I mean, he comes across as kind of that vigilante anti-hero sort of thing.
And I like it too because he didn't really do it for him, you know what I mean? It's not like Batman, like my parents got killed by a criminal, so now I'm gonna destroy the criminal world. It was more like, yo, I got thrown into this vat of toxic waste, so now it kind of fucked me up, and I really want to kill bad people. It just like gave him like this like moral superiority complex. Really like drove him mad to the point where like he has to kill evil people, and I thought it was badass because he saves a cop at one point, and he gets revenge on the people that like were responsible for him falling into that toxic slime. Which I would have been like, hey man, thanks for that, but still I would have killed them just for being dickheads. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a lot of very questionable morality in the story, and really that's kind of the case for all of these movies, sort of. I mean, Blade killing vampires, that's cool. Because, I mean, from our perspective as human beings, at least, that's like a terrible thing to happen, and they're monsters. Hellboy, killing demons and stuff like that, okay, sure. But Toxie and like the Crow, they're kind of on the other side of the coin where it's like, is it okay?
Yeah, exactly.
Is it not okay? You kind of have to like consider it. And going into like Brightburn, it's cool because we already kind of know that the kid, the main character, is
Not
some kind of alien or something. And yeah, he's basically a super villain. So we kind of get the extreme side where it's like, I wonder, like, are they going to try and like calm him down and like give him an intervention and turn him good? Or is he just going to fucking flip out and go absolutely crazy and just murder everybody? It seems like it's going to go that way. But I wonder what the moral question is going to be. I heard that there's a lot of themes of like xenophobia and stuff like that too.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, so it kind of seems like it might be going toward,
What do you think sets him off?
I think it might just be like people
being assholes.
Yeah, basically.
And then he's like, man, you think my kind are bad. You're making fun of me for being like this? Fuck everyone who's like you.
Right. So, or, something inside him just snaps. I really don't know, but it's going to be a portrayal of kind of the superhero in a horror movie that we haven't seen before. And that's why I'm excited about it.
I like it because like it's not like Toxic Avenger or The Crow. It's not like a revenge and people who deserve it are getting killed type thing. It's more like hey, I know I have superpowers and I'm young, so I'm pretty immature. So I'm just gonna start fucking shit up just because.
Yeah, I wonder. I think that there's going to be some kind of emotional trigger.
Probably someone makes fun of him, or once he realizes he's not a human, he's like, well, then I guess my job is to eradicate them. Like,
yeah. So I mean, yeah, I'm pretty interested in how the superhero aspect's really going to play into it with the horror, because it seems like it's going to be a pretty gory, like ultra violent movie. That's how it's being kind of billed.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah. So let us know your guys' thoughts about it, as well as your favorite superhero horror movies. Obviously, we left out a few of them, like Constantine, Darkman, The First Blade, and then there's a few others as well. So there aren't like a ton, but they're out there, and hopefully they start getting more traction, because I feel like it's definitely an untapped subcategory of horror. As long as we don't get like 50 of them a year, I think it's an interesting kind of thing to explore.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's gonna try to copy off Brightburn, and I really hope they don't because that's enough superhero horror for me for a long time. We just had Hellboy released recently too, so
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can agree with that. I guess we'll see like how it does at the box office, but we're going to move on to our final segment here today where we look at a new streaming horror film and let you guys know if you should watch it or if it's been chopped on The Chopping Block. In this week's Chopping Block, we have a new movie to hit Hulu. It's actually 2018's Pledge.
yes, and I think they recently released it on Blu-ray this year, and I grabbed it from Scream Factory, but
Mhm.
then I saw it was not like solely a Blu-ray release, and I saw it was on Hulu,
Mm.
so I was like, why even open it? You know, like
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, I think that it is a 2019 release, so I guess I'm kind of treating it as that.
yeah, because like it just came out on like Blu-ray, so
Yeah. So, a new horror film, and this one is kind of like a torture porn movie,
you guys remember Monster Party? It's kind of that type of thriller. You know what I mean?
sort of. Yeah, it's another college-centric horror film where essentially these sorry, but virgins.
Yeah, incels.
Yeah, they're very much like your stereotypical movie nerds. You know, like there's like a Jewish kid with a very big nose and curly hair. There's like
And
a
he's
fat
the
guy.
McLovin type.
Yeah, and then there's like the nerdy black kid with the glasses and everything. You know, so it's
He has
it's
the
very
Gerald afro from Hey Arnold.
yeah, it's very typical, stereotypical. And they get recruited by this hot girl to go to this like house. Like she gives him an address, and they go to this place, and it's like way off, like 2 miles away from campus or something like that. You know, in the woods, they have to like climb through a gate to get there, and they find these like frat guys who want to make them pledges. So they party it up, and then they come back the next day, and some crazy shit starts happening.
You could tell there was like something off about them because like the one dude that got offended that like the fat kid didn't want a shot or whatever,
Yeah.
and like the way they were talking, they seemed like one percenters. You know what I mean? Like the
Oh, yeah.
like upper class. Like it was more of like a social club, you know, than a frat, and like they were like sort of pretentious because they always dressed like spiffy. You know, one of them had like the
Yeah.
stereotypical like Englishman with a robe blazer thing going on, and it was just like douchebags.
They were very much the personality type that would like call their fathers if anything happened to them.
Yep.
Like if they raped a girl behind the club, they could get away with it.
Yeah, that was
kind of thing, you know, as fucked up as that is, but
yep, those are the guys.
yeah, but those are those kind of guys, and they just kind of give off this very uncomfortable, like uncertain vibe throughout the entire beginning of the movie. And they essentially kind of start fucking around with these pledges, and I don't really want to give away what happens, but I did say it was kind of like a torture porn thing before, because I mean, there's some excruciating things that these pledges have to go through.
It was gross. It was a gross out movie.
It was. Yeah. It's one of those.
It's one that makes you wonder like what the hell is exactly going on,
Mhm.
and you don't really find out until like 3/4 or 4/5 of the way throughout. 4/5 is more
Yeah.
accurate. 4/5 of the way throughout the movie until the last like 20 minutes, and then
Mhm.
it gets to the point where there's just action and no dialogue. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
symbolism and all that weird shit.
There's kind of a twist. I mean, I'm not going to say what it is, but essentially there is a twist, but it doesn't feel like a twist that much. You're just kind of like, oh, okay. It's one of those kind of reveals, I guess.
Yeah, it wasn't bad though.
Yeah. It wasn't as extreme as something like Salo or a Serbian film or anything like that.
no.
But yeah, it still had that gross out factor where they tried to portray things that you wouldn't normally see in a horror movie really, really shown. You know, a lot of movies may have these kind of elements but imply them. But this movie wanted to show you what was happening just for like the shock factor. So, I mean, I can't say they did it tastefully, but I think they achieved their goal. You
I
know?
think so.
It's
And
still
it was-
pretty gross.
And it was pretty funny too, so
Oh yeah, it was.
it was really like disturbing though. Like not in like a traditional sense, like it was like here's some shocks, here's some blood. It was more like a
Mhm.
I don't know. It was like just what was happening, like because you could end up in a situation like that. You know what I mean? It wasn't like anything like too out of the blue, like ghosts or something like that, or someone being possessed. And
I still kind of feel like it was a little bit of a contrived story because there are many points in this movie where you're kind of observing like the character's actions and you're like, there's no way I wouldn't have taken this guy out right now.
yeah,
Basically, you know, or like done something to remedy the situation because they were in a very fucked up situation. So sometimes the writing seemed a little like too generous, like favoring just like the progression of the story, I felt like. But that was fine.
yeah. I felt like it was more like that than what would have actually unfolded
Yeah.
in real life.
But at the same time, I didn't care too much. You know, I was willing to let what happened just kind of ride because I knew that that's what they wanted to do. I know this was going to be like a shocker movie that they were going to try to show us all these crazy scenes, and they did that. So, I mean, for what it was, I think it was fine. It didn't do anything like crazy new. It actually utilized, I feel like, some things that we've already seen before. But, I mean, for like a gore kind of movie, it was okay.
Yeah, I think it was well, and I don't think it's chopped either because like you'll enjoy it if you watch it. Honestly, I had fun watching it. It was like it made you think it was like this loosey goosey, like, you know, fun tempered movie, but it went off the rails like
Yeah.
relatively quick once weird shit started happening. So
I mean, say what you will about these kind of movies, and they're not my favorite type of movies. I'll say that right off the bat. Like I can watch Saw and Hostel and stuff like that, but I don't go toward those movies. you
yeah, I
know?
don't either. I don't like them.
So yeah, I'll watch them, but they're not my go-to thing. And I wouldn't say that this movie is either, but they still keep you engaged,
Yeah, they do.
like really well, you know, because
Because there's not too much exposition, you know? It's not like,
yeah,
hey, you know, they don't explain everything like and spit it right at you like, here's what's going on.
it's just a crazy random situation, kind of like you said. You could find yourself in it. I mean, it's still pretty far-fetched, but it's not too far-fetched. You know, like sure, there probably are crazy criminal organizations hidden around and just people like kidnapping people and, you know, shit like that. So it's not that impossible to believe. But, you know, these movies are rooted in reality, obviously relate to you the most. So yeah, I feel like that's probably why they keep you interested in the movie. So I think this movie did that pretty well. And it was short too,
Yeah, like
which was helpful.
the same length as like The Invisible Man.
Kind of, yeah. I think it was like an
hour 18 minutes. Something
Yeah, hour
like
and
that.
18 minutes. I think Invisible Man was like an hour and 10, but
Yeah.
it was very short. If this movie was an hour 45 to 2 hours long, it would have been way too much.
And then there would have been like hella exposition and weird explanations, and I'm glad it was short. Honestly, it made its point.
Yeah, so it's a quick, easy watch as long as you don't get too grossed out by the contents and just stop halfway in or anything. But if you're like me and, you know, this isn't your go-to kind of film, then maybe you want to save it for when you're in the mood for something like that, because it's not like the easiest watch. It's not like super extreme or gory, you know, like those other movies that I mentioned, but it still has that factor. So
I would say it's a notch below what Monster Party was, because it was not as bloody or extreme as Monster Party, but
yeah,
it was still like extreme for just kids going to college and then this happening. You know what I mean?
I think the gross out factor was definitely higher in this movie than in Monster Party, because Monster Party I think was just more bloody.
Yeah.
So that's what I'll say about it. But yeah, that's gonna pretty much do it for episode 62, guys. As always, you can communicate with us and tell us what you thought about all the movies we discussed in today's episode on Facebook and Instagram at Grave Discussions, and on Twitter at GraveDiscSRD. We also have a website, gravediscussions.net, where you can catch all of our episodes as well as read host bios and contact us.
And make sure you tune in next week where we juggle flaming swords on Grave Discussions. We're not doing that.
been an SRD production.